Hello everybody. Thanks again for visiting my YouTube channel. This is the place where we discuss the Lord's recovery and how religion goes wrong. Well, today I had an idea to talk more about the idea of speaking and gifts. And I wanted to start out by showing this description of the strengths and weaknesses of my personality type as an introduction into examining Witness Lee's personality type. Now, I'm not just doing this to talk about myself, I'm doing it to make a point. And so bear with me on this. I think it's actually very interesting, and I would suggest you go to 16personalities.com and take the test and find out what type you are, and then read the descriptions. There's a lot of articles for each of them talking about different things like a general description, how you form friendships, how you form romantic relationships, how you basically approach life, and one of them is the strengths and weaknesses, which is the one I will focus on. Now, I've gone into this before, back in episode 95, which is 2 or more years old, and I talked about this. The title of that episode was God Doesn't Want Everybody to Be the Same, and the same kind of theme applies here, but I want to go into a little more detail, and I want to impress upon you guys this again about how the Lord's recovery was completely wrong about this thing about everybody being the same. And their idea, well, if we all conform to Christ, we're all eventually going to be the same. Like with a lot of Lord's recovery teachings, there's some truth to that, but the sameness is in our character, not necessarily in our gifts or our approach. That's the difference. We all are going to have Jesus' character. We're all going to be like our Father in heaven, in that we're going to be loving and caring and compassionate for the truth, all the things Jesus was. But that doesn't necessarily mean we're going to have the same personalities or temperaments or approach problems the same way. God created a lot of diversity in the world. As I said in the last message, people are like snowflakes or fingerprints. They're all the same, but they're all different. And that, I think, is expressive of God's love for diversity. He's able to have diversity and unity. A snowflake is a snowflake, and yet every snowflake has a unique beauty and a unique design. That's amazing. And it's the same way with people. And this has become a science now, and they've learned that a person's temperament is constructed from 4 basic elements. Those are expressed with letters. So the letter pairs are, you're either an I or an E, you're either introverted or extroverted. An S or an N, you're either a person who looks at the surface of things and is concerned about what's really going on, or you're an intuitive person who looks more deeply into things and is more of a deep thinker or a deep feeler and tries to find meaning in hidden connections. And you're either a T or an F, meaning you either focus mostly on logical things or you focus on feelings, sentimental things. And then there's J or P. J means that you prefer structure, organization, thinking about things and planning them before you do them. And P means you tend to be more spontaneous. You don't like to plan a lot of things. You like to fly by the seat of your pants and that kind of thing. So you put these 4 letters together with their 2 options and they're on a spectrum. It's not black or white. You could be like 50-50 introverted or extroverted. There are people like that, and you can be 50-50 on all of them. I tend to be about 75-25 on mine, and I am an INTJ. I'm introverted in that I prefer to recharge my batteries by myself. I'm an N, which means I tend to be a deep thinker, an abstract thinker. I'm a T, definitely, meaning I focus on my thoughts and ideas. And I'm a J, meaning I tend to like structure and organization. But I'm about 75 on the first 3, and I'm more like 70 on the last one. I do like spontaneity some. I've often wondered about that, but I think it's because my particular personality type tends to not like pointless rules. In other words, we got to plan this because we said we have to plan it. We're going to plan this, so we need to plan. We have to have a list. We have to have 3 pages of notes. And I'll be like, no, we don't. And we can plan it, but we don't have to make a page of notes. That's kind of the way I am. So I don't want to spend too much time talking about me and my personality type because what I really want to do is continue on to talk about what I feel was Witness Lee's personality type. But I want to describe mine a little bit first to kind of lead into it and talk about some of the strengths and weaknesses quickly. So basically, my strengths are I'm rational, I'm informed, I'm independent, I'm determined, I'm curious, and I'm original. INTJs tend to want to figure out the world for themselves. They don't want somebody else to tell them what the world is like. They don't mind input and they will do research, but they will draw their own conclusions. And isn't it interesting that that's what I've been talking about on this YouTube channel for a long time now? Draw your own conclusions. Do your own research. Find out what's really going on. Don't just trust somebody 100% to tell you what to do or what to believe. Isn't that interesting? Let me just read one description here. This is under independent. For people with this personality type, conformity is more or less synonymous with mediocrity. Creative and self-motivated, INTJs strive to do things their own way. They can imagine few things more frustrating than allowing arbitrary rules or conventions to stand in the way of their success. Moreover, they are happy to make decisions without outside input or opinions. These individuals prefer to take matters into their own hands. Does that sound like somebody that would fit into the Lord's recovery? But this is my personality type. This isn't a flaw. This is an aspect. Now, any of these strengths can be used in a way that isn't so good. But the idea that you're just a conformist, like the Lord's recovery told you you need to be, is absolutely contrary to God's creation. God made some people to not be conformists, and I'm afraid I am one of them. And I tried so hard to fit in to that system, and I was naive, and there was just something about it that made me really uncomfortable. And eventually I realized that it was these people don't care what I think. They don't care about my perspective. They don't care about what I believe. They don't care about my gifts to share what I think might be a better way. They just don't care. I would never fit into a place like that. Now, granted, INTJs have trouble fitting into a lot of places, and I'll go into the weaknesses here. INTJ weaknesses, arrogant. Really? They think I'm arrogant. What are they talking about? What do they know? Okay. Dismissive of emotions. I used to be a lot more that way, but I tell you what, all you got to do is feel some intense emotions of disappointment and hurt, and you start sympathizing with people. And this is part of transformation. I have been humbled by the Lord to be a lot more compassionate, and I enjoy being that way. I like it. That's why we have to go through certain things that humble us. But I can still be a little impatient with an emotional person. Overly critical. Overly critical. They think I'm overly critical. Do you think I am? I could be. I have been, yes. But God has taught me to keep my mouth shut and not assert my opinion in every situation. Combative. Huh? Me? Combative. Wow. How about this one? There's the last one. Socially clueless. Well, I can tell you that's true. But I've learned a lot. And so in my path of life, I've really experienced how God takes the raw material of a personality and stretches it to be more able to see things from other people's perspective and appreciate the gifts of others. So I think that's very interesting. And again, I do highly recommend you get on this site and do some research. They've improved it quite a bit. The commentary is even better than ever. You start thinking that somebody's been watching you because they describe me to a T in a lot of ways. But what kind of personality type was Witness Lee? Well, I believe he was actually one that's very close to mine. except I believe he was extroverted, not introverted. I believe he was an ENTJ. He's similar to me, except that he is more of a people person. He's more of a person who is comfortable speaking in front of a big group. He was more comfortable leading a group of people. He had more people skills. He wasn't socially clueless, most likely. A lot of great leaders, strong leaders in history have been ENTJs. It tends to be the personality of a dictator, to put it bluntly. He was obviously a J. He was a person of huge organization. He was not spontaneous. He obviously was a person that focused on his thoughts and ideas, as shown by the theology he created. He was obviously very intuitive, a very deep thinker, because he couldn't come up with those ideas without being a person who liked to sit around and think about ideas. And then, as I said, his leadership abilities, his ability to command the attention and the devotion of a group of people speaks to the fact that he was extroverted. He had people skills. So I don't think there's any doubt that he was an ENTJ. So what I'm going to do now is show you the strengths and weaknesses of an ENTJ according to 16personalities.com, and I think you'll find it highly enlightening. So let's get into it. ENTJ strengths. They are efficient. People with the ENTJ personality type see inefficiency not just as a problem in its own right, but as something that pulls time and energy away from all their future goals. An elaborate sabotage consisting of irrationality and laziness. They will root out such behavior wherever they go. Now, isn't that what Witness Lee did? He was always trying to make things more efficient. He was always trying to rebuke us for our sloppiness and laziness and not working hard enough for the Lord's recovery and so forth. Energetic. ENTJ personalities approach their responsibilities with vigor and drive. This is not a type to shy away from busy schedules or complex challenges. In fact, the more they are able to accomplish through the day, the more energized they feel. They will happily share this infectious enthusiasm for productivity with the people around them. Okay, I think that was Witness Lee too. I remember one time he was talking about an elders meeting that went late into the night, and all the elders started getting sleepy and wanted to go home, and he got kind of disgusted with them and told them to drink honey and lemon juice, and it would wake them up and they could keep going and do more work. Self-confident. ENTJs generally make their opinions known, trust in their abilities to get things done, and believe in their capacity as leaders. They are the most likely personality type to say they feel confident facing life's day-to-day challenges. Yes, Witness Lee was very confident. He was so confident that he didn't think anybody had an idea that was better than any idea he ever had. Strong-willed. People with the ENTJ personality type don't give up when the going gets tough. Instead, they relentlessly strive to achieve their goals. Nothing is quite as satisfying to them as accomplishing something that they've set their mind to. That sounds like Witness Lee too, doesn't it? Strategic thinkers. ENTJ personalities exemplify the difference between moment-to-moment crisis management and navigating the challenges and steps of a bigger plan. They are known for examining every angle of a problem and not just resolving momentary issues, but moving the whole project forward to their solutions. Yep, that's Witness Lee. Charismatic and inspiring. All of the strengths listed above combine to create individuals who are able to inspire and invigorate others. And this in turn helps ENTJs to accomplish their most ambitious goals, which could not be finished alone. There he is again. Hidden in this statement is the idea that he needed others to accomplish what he wanted to do, which was to create his movement and his vision and to push it through and even to try to change the world with it. And even, my gosh, to bring the Lord back. That was his goal. Now that's a big goal and you got to hand it to him for having it, but it was all hinged upon the way he saw things, and he found enough people to follow his charisma and inspiration to believe he was the great minister of the age. Now let's move on to ENTJ weaknesses. This will be possibly even more enlightening. Stubborn and dominant. Sometimes all this confidence and willpower can go too far. Really? You think so? ENTJ personalities are all too capable of digging in their heels, trying to win every single debate, and only pushing for their vision without considering the input of others. Does that sound like Witness Lee? Sure does to me. Intolerant. It's my way or the highway. People with the ENTJ personality type are notoriously unsupportive of ideas that distract from their primary goals, and even more so of ideas based on emotional considerations. They won't hesitate to make that fact clear to those around them. Yes, that's what Witness Lee did. That's the way he was. He dug in his heels and he was unsupportive of any idea that didn't support his primary goal. Impatient. Some people need more time to think than others, an intolerable delay to quick-thinking ENTJ personalities. They may misinterpret contemplation as stupidity or disinterest in their haste, a terrible mistake to make. Yes, Witness Lee, impatience. I saw it several times. Arrogant. ENTJs respect quick thoughts and firm convictions and may look down on those who don't match up. This is a challenge for most other personality types who are perhaps not timid in their own right, but will seem so beside the sometimes overbearing type. Be quick. Remember that? You're giving testimony. Be quick. Yep. Poor handling of emotions. At times, ENTJ's personalities can be distant from their own emotional expression and sometimes downright scornful of others. People with this personality type often trample others' feelings, inadvertently hurting their partners and friends, especially in emotionally charged situations. I think Witness Lee probably learned how to be a little more patient than the average ENTJ, but in the end, he would trample people's feelings. For example, when he decided to try to rescue his movement by publishing the Vision of the Age and calling other people rebels and that kind of thing, he, in the end, would throw people under the bus to get his way. And the last one, cold and ruthless. Their obsession with efficiency and unwavering belief in the merits of rationalism, especially professionally, make ENTJs fairly insensitive in pursuing their goals, dismissing personal circumstances, sensitivities, and preferences as irrational and irrelevant. So if somebody described Witness Lee like this, he would be hitting it pretty close. What you got to see here is this is a particular personality type that God created. He uses this type of personality, and people are susceptible to it. Obviously, it is needed. We all are needed, and yet you can see how the weaknesses of this personality type in Witness Lee created a dynamic that enslaved a bunch of people to his vision, to the point where he said, if you don't go along with my vision, you can't be right with God. You talk about arrogance. That is taking it to the limit there when you start saying stuff like that, and that's what he did. And that's what the co-workers in the Lord's Recovery in North America have done in their relentless following of Witness Lee without any questioning. They are simply just continuing this pattern of dominance over people and expecting people to serve their purpose. And so I would hope again that you would study this more and see that God created all kinds of personality types, and the idea that we all have to just succumb to this one personality type is of course wrong. These people can do a lot of good because the world needs leaders, but we all have to, whatever our personality type, learn to be led away to the lowly. We need to learn to be humble. We need to learn to be compassionate. We need to learn to see people and love people like God sees them, as unique as a snowflake, having gifts that we can use and respecting those gifts and not expecting everybody to have our gift. This is what Paul was talking about when he talked about the body. When Paul talked about the body, he emphasized the unique gifts and the value of each member. He did not emphasize everybody conforming to the body. He did not teach that. He taught oneness, but oneness is not conforming to the feeling of the body. Oneness is being one with God and letting that oneness affect how you treat people. And so here I am with my INTJ personality type doing it again one more time, analyzing things and trying to figure things out, and I enjoy it. I would say I'm just a guy. I'm just a brother in the Lord's kingdom. I like doing this, and I hope you get some good out of it. And I would hope that those in charge of the Lord's recovery would consider these matters, consider how they've trampled on the gifts of people that don't fit into their conformist group. Perhaps we can all learn to be more general, be more receiving, and appreciate every single member of the body of Christ and their gifts and receive them. Receive their word, receive their speaking, consider it, be humble. God can speak from anywhere. For the body of Christ to be built, you absolutely have to do that. You cannot do it by simply following one man and his vision, however compelling his personality was. That's it for this time. Thanks once again for listening. Take care.